1 minute and in your table group, ask each other, what is FERPA? What does it stand for? And what are some of the regulations that you are familiar with when it comes to FERPA? Just take 2 minutes and talk about that.
That was good. Say that again. I'll write it down. Something reform.
Good stuff, Sarah Bryan.
Did I do that right?
She goes.
Federal Education Reform Protection Act. I don't know if R is. Am I being recorded for real?
Yes, yes, you are. That's
I don't know if R is for federal.
It's good stuff.
Or, I hope I'm right. What have I meant? Oh, there's a rap.
Sounds government.
Yeah.
All right. Trish, make sure it's not muted down there.
This is my presentation. You better pay attention. You'll know the law will have the following, won't give you detention. Hey, F-E-R-P-A, that's what we say, that's what we say, it's FERPA! FERPA, 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 FERPA. Don't you think twice about giving out students information without parental confirmation. Unless you are a parent or student's guardian, the student must be 18, or you best be stepping. If the student is in danger or a serious troublemaker, those records can be released automatically. Your court requester sees F-E-R-P-A, that's what we say, that's what we say, it's FERPA! FERPA, 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 FERPA. Don't you think twice about giving out students information without parental confirmation. Now teachers, don't be fretting and never go forgetting that schools have lost no money and the word is pretty funny. F-E-R-P-A, that's what we say, that's what we say, it's FERPA! FERPA, 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 FERPA. Don't you think twice about giving out student information without parental confirmation.
So I tried to get the admin team to reenact that, but it didn't happen, so I got that from somebody else. Anyway, just a little lightweight to start something that is kind of serious. Come on now, don't give me trouble. FERPA does stand for... Oh. Why am I having so many... Family Education Rights and Privacy Act is what FERPA stands for, and many of us learned about that when we were in school, but we don't remember it, or we kind of remembered it, but we weren't exactly knew what it stood for, because there's so many different acronyms that are being thrown at us in this field that we're in. So it's the federal law that protects the privacy of students' school records, and it's applicable to all schools that receive federal funding. So anyone that gets federal funding has to follow these FERPA laws. It gives parents rights as well, and I wanted to share that with you before I talk about what teachers are expected to do under FERPA. I wanted you to know that parents have certain rights with respect to their child's records as well. They can opt out and or agree to certain things when it comes to their child's personal information. And when a child turns 18, the rights automatically transfer over to that child. Some of you who have college students probably know that even though you're paying the tuition at college, FERPA protects your child's records and grades from you even as their parent. So I wanted to show you something in CMS. This is called the Principal's Desk Reference. It's online. If you ever have any spare time and you'd like to look up different laws and legal things that are happening. But this kind of shows us, and this is a directory of what could be included in school publications. So this is like an automatic, this is what we are allowed to publicize about a child unless, if you look down here at the bottom, within 10 days of the beginning of the school year, parents opt out of their child's information. So we are legally allowed to share this information: address, phone number, name, date and place of birth, awards, participation in activities and sports, height and weight of athletic team members, email addresses, and again, the green side is more for older kids that get to high school and college. So I just thought that was kind of interesting because that's something that I really wasn't aware of, that parents were able to opt out. And I'm wondering, do parents know this? Or do parents know they're allowed to opt out? And my guess is, if you're a parent in CMS, did you know you were allowed to opt out? Okay, so Debbie and Sandy obviously read things that come from their child's school, so they know that they're allowed to opt out.
Well, Trish, also, I just got to think, they wouldn't even instate Michael's scholarships where he's playing lacrosse. They wouldn't even do the scholarships until all of that was signed and et cetera, you know. And he is 18, but still.
Right. So, what does this have to do with me as a teacher? What does FERPA have to do with me as a teacher? This is the important part for us. These are things you can do. You can allow students to edit each other's work before their grades are given. You can display student work as long as there's no names with no grades. You can display student work if there's not a name on there. You can disclose educational record information to other team members who have direct educational interest in the shared student. So, in other words, if I were to discuss something with Miss Landis about an EC student that we both share, that would be okay. But if I went and talked to somebody who doesn't share that same 6th grade student, like Miss Jacobs, I start telling her about a 6th grader that I have, oh, wait till you see him when he comes into the 8th grade. That truly is a FERPA violation. And I say this because when I started to study and learn more about FERPA and get deep into it, I walked around the building last year and I was like, ooh, that's a FERPA violation. Ooh, that's a FERPA violation. Like my radar was out because it came back up to the forefront of my brain. Okay? So just think about some of the things that maybe you're doing that could come into question with FERPA. These are things you can't do. You can't disclose the information to employees who don't have a legitimate educational interest. If someone were to email me from downtown, from the EC department, about the records of an EC child, would they have an educational interest? Yes, they would. But if somebody's mother from the neighborhood who thinks this kid has behavior issues calls me and says, does he have an IEP? Can I talk to her about that? No, I can't. So a lot of it's common sense, but sometimes there's some gray areas that we're not sure about that we should just ask about. You cannot post people's grades. For example, you're so excited because 90% of your class got 100 on the quiz, so you put all their names up on the smartboard. Look, all you guys got 100, great job. We can't do that. We used to do that. We can't do that anymore. It's just not good practice. Use students' first and last name in written communication. This is probably the biggest offender of most people. When you're sending an email, you should, Christy Babau is really good at this, she'll put the first initial and last name in an email, or some people just put the last name. But when you're communicating about grades and or secured information, you shouldn't be using a student's first and last name. If a violation occurs, the district could be fined and funding could be removed from the school. This is what the consequence is if a FERPA violation occurs. That could happen. And that's just the address of, if you have a complaint as a parent, I thought many of you were parents, so if you have a complaint as a parent, that's where you would mail your violation to. So, is this a violation? We're going to play a game. Mr. Jacobs shares the student's grades from his fourth period class with Mrs. Jacobs at dinner on Friday evening. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, it is a FERPA violation. Sorry.
It's not.
Mr. Farrell Smith asked Ms. Diaz in an email if he can be a part of V. Gonzalez's IEP meeting to discuss his progress on goals. Yes or no?
If he has them in class.
If he has them in class, good one.
Thank you so much.
Yes, if he's his student, which normally he would if he's going to report on his progress, but you're right.
Thank you.
Ms. Jamison provides some confidential student information to a substitute, which is marked confidential.
Depends on if the substitute needs it.
Can we give confidential information to a substitute? Yes, we can. They have a marked interest in our child, in our student. And if it's marked confidential, we can do that. One of the reasons why sometimes it's not always a great idea to have a parent as a substitute, right? Mr. Gaff posts a picture of his class sleeping on Facebook. Can you do that? No, he can't post anything about his students on Facebook. Okay, just a couple more. Talking about East Seat students' accommodations in the front office. Can we do that?
No.
As long as it's behind closed doors, right? Student volunteer handing back graded quizzes to the whole class.
No.
Most people do this from time to time because they're in a hurry. So it is a FERPA violation. Students should not be allowed to see other students' grades. Asking a parent for permission to enter their child's personal information for an essay contest.
Yeah, you can do that. That's okay.
Yes, that's okay. The key here is to ask permission from a parent regardless. Even if it's in question, that's your best bet because they are overall the ones who matter and can give you that permission to do that. So just be aware and think about some of the things that you might do. I think probably as teachers, one of the biggest things that we do, not necessarily intending to do so, is discuss students in the hallway or at the lunch table where other people are in earshot, and we don't really recognize that and think about it. But one of the things that I learned a long time ago was ask yourself, if this was my child, would I want people at the lunch table talking about how poorly they did on a test or how hard they're struggling to grasp this concept? So just keep those in mind, okay? That's FERPA.